When my buddy Jake called me the other day, he sounded half excited and half panicked. He'd finally saved enough for a real gaming monitor, but the last thing he wanted was to drop $600 on something that looked gorgeous in the box and turned out to be a nightmare on his desk. I told him I'd taken a look at a couple of 4K options, and that the link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Then we dove into what actually matters when you're deciding whether a dual monitor setup is worth the cash. The first question most people ask is, do I really need 4K? For a lot of gamers, the answer is it depends. If you're playing fast-paced shooters or competitive titles, you're probably more focused on refresh rate and response time than pixel count. But if you also edit video, do a lot of coding, or just enjoy sitting back and watching movies in the highest fidelity your graphics card can push, a 3840x2160 panel suddenly feels less like a luxury and more like a productivity boost. The TUF VG289Q1A is a 28-inch screen that claims 5 milliseconds motion blur reduction and FreeSync Premium, which means you get a tear-free experience without the jitter you sometimes see on cheaper 4K panels. In real-world use, that translates to smoother gameplay on a decent GPU, and for non-gaming tasks it just means the UI stays crisp even when you have multiple windows tiled across the screen. One of the biggest hidden trade-offs with a 28-inch 4K display is scaling. Windows and macOS will automatically upscale most applications, but older games or niche productivity tools can look tiny unless you bump up the scaling factor. I've seen users who love the pixel density get frustrated when a spreadsheet cell becomes a dot. The good news is that the TUF monitors include a built-in scaling preset that makes it easier to switch between 100% and 150% scaling without diving into your OS settings every time. If you plan to use both monitors side by side for a massive desktop, the scaling becomes less of a pain because you can dedicate one screen to gaming at native 4K and the other to standard resolution work apps. HDR10 is another buzzword that often gets thrown around, and the VG289Q1A does support it. In practice, the HDR experience is modest. The panel can reach a peak brightness of around 300 nits, which is decent for an office monitor, but falls short of the 600+ nits you'd find on a dedicated TV or premium gaming screen. What you do get, though, is a noticeable boost in contrast for HDR-enabled games, and streaming content colors pop a bit more, and dark scenes retain detail. If you're a casual movie watcher, you'll appreciate the extra depth. If you're a color-critical video editor, you'll probably still reach for a calibrated monitor with higher brightness and a wider color gamut. Eye comfort is a real selling point for anyone who spends long hours in front of a screen, and ASUS has loaded the TUF series with its typical eyecare suite, flicker-free backlighting, and a low blue light filter. I tested the monitors for a full afternoon of coding, and the flicker-free tech truly reduced eye strain compared to an older 1080p monitor I used to have. The blue light filter can be toggled in 3 presets, so you can keep it subtle during the day and crank it up when you're working late. For gamers, that means you can push the session length a little further without the usual eye fatigue that comes from staring at high-contrast textures. The 2-pack bundle is where the value proposition really shines. Buying a single 28-inch 4K panel can set you back around $350, but ASUS ships a matched pair for roughly $650. That's a saving of nearly $100, plus you get the convenience of identical color and brightness across both screens. If you set up a dual monitor rig, you can keep your game on the left and your chat, stream tools, or editing timeline on the right without juggling different calibrations. For a streaming setup, the integrated speakers, while not audiophile grade, are a nice fallback if you don't want to clutter the desk with a separate soundbar. In a pinch, they are loud enough for casual music or in-game chat, but don't expect cinematic sound. Of course, there are practical weaknesses. The stand offers tilt, but no height adjustment, swivel, or pivot. That means you'll either have to live with the fixed height, or invest in a VESA mount, which adds to the overall cost. The HDMI ports are 2.0, not 2.1, so you won't get 120 Hz at 4K from the latest consoles, something to keep in mind if you were hoping to game on a PS5 or Xbox Series X without dropping the frame rate. The panel's color accuracy out of the box is decent for gaming, but it falls short of the sRGB+ coverage you'd expect from a professional design monitor. If you need true-to-life color for photo editing, you'll likely have to spend time calibrating or look elsewhere. So, who should actually hit add to cart for the TUF VG289Q1A? If you're a gamer who already